All right, we thank you very much for staying with us. And we are getting into our second conversation, which is on breaking barriers, building futures, the power of women's mobilization in Nigeria. And today we are taking a closer look at the collective efforts of women's rights organizations and advocacy groups driving social and political change in Nigeria.
That's true, Victor. From grassroots campaigns to high-level advocacy, we're exploring the initiatives that are empowering women and promoting inclusive governance.
So we invite you to join us as we highlight the stories of women who are making a difference and examine the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for women empowerment in Nigeria. I'm now being joined for this conversation by Nneka Acholonu Ebuna, who is a program coordinator for Let's Help Humanitarian Foundation. A pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Also joining us on the program is Anole Aniebo. She's the development professional, gender specialist, and humanitarian advocate. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. If I may begin with Nneka here, is when we talk about empowerment of women, it seems like something abstract. But for you, in real terms, when we talk about empowerment, is it in the homes? Is it in the marketplace? Is it in the offices? Or wherever we find ourselves? What does this really mean?
Thank you for that question, because the word empowerment has become like a cliche, and it's used carelessly sometimes, and some people have a misconception about what empowerment is all about. But simply put, empowerment is giving a woman or a girl or anybody at all the full opportunity to manifest their full potentials, whether it's at home, in the public space, in any affairs at all.
More like an enabling environment?
Yeah, providing, that's also part of it, bringing in an enabling environment where the person can function optimally to their full potentials, then depending on the areas or the sectors the person belongs to. Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at how can women's rights organization and advocacy groups, work together to drive, social and political change. We've noticed that in most cases, women don't actually support, each other. Yeah, we've noticed. We've observed even during elections, when women, come out for elective positions, you can count the number of votes that they get, and most times, most of the people that come out for voting are women. So what's the problem? What's the challenge?
It's interesting that you use that example, but we need to lose that women don't support women narrative. It's so old. It's really so old, I must say that. But to your question, in collaboration is quite key and strong. But we have to first applaud the many, civil societies, women rights organizations that are doing a lot of work. There's how society sort of minimizes the great work that a lot of women are doing and expands on the work that they think women are not doing. A lot of women are collaborating so much so across the spaces, and we're still doing that. That is why one of the reasons that we're here today. What we need to see more of, if you wanted to, look at the example of voting system, that's a different category in its own, because women do come out to vote for everybody. But you have to ask a question, who is on the ballot? When you say women are not voting for people, you have to really ask, who are the people who are on the ballot anyway? They will only vote who is on the ballot, right? Yeah. And you also have to understand that long before now, there's been a discrimination about how many women are supposed to be on the ballot to vote anyway. So what do you want the women to come out to vote to do? They can't manufacture women and put on there. So there has to be strong collaboration, and we're doing that. But moving forward, I have to agree with you. There's still space for improvement. We still need to all still come together and see that when a woman is actively representing another woman and representing their issues, we're all, in the room, we're all being supported. So I will push for more support, but is there advocacy going on, and are we all working together? Absolutely we are, but there's room for improvement.
All right, thank you very much. And let me get back to Nneka. Now, we've seen various government and NGO programs aimed at empowering women in the terms that we know in Nigeria. But in your view, what's actually working, and where are we? What can be improved, by the way?
Well, a lot is working because if you check from where we are coming from, since 1999, there's been some improvements, and I know the very little gains are not being celebrated enough, but then there's been some improvements. Women were told that they are speaking to themselves, they are not collaborating enough, we should bring other actors in the room, involve this person or that person, and we're doing all that, and I mean the women groups. But by the end of the day, you still find out that there is still some pushback.
You say you're doing all that. How are you doing it? How are you going about it?
There's a lot of advocacy. We learn from previous mistakes, previous mistakes. We take the lessons, we come back, we review where we've gone wrong, what we've done wrong, and how we can improve as women groups. And we bring all these considerations back to the table and involve more people, re-strategize. But by the end of the day, you still find out that we are still at point zero. I don't know if you know that book called Women at Point Zero. We're still at point zero. We're still back to the drawing board. So it's like, what else do women need to do? What is it that we need to say that we haven't already said? So that's the situation we find ourselves.
You're not frustrated, I hope.
No, I'm not frustrated, but it's also interesting.
All right. Okay, Anuli, let's look at these societal and cultural barriers that actually, limits women potential. How do you begin to break that?
Now, that is a question that we all have to keep asking everyone. You see, social norms is thriving in our society. It exists to the very, very top of echelons. Everywhere social norm exists. Boys and girls are raised differently. We cannot agree that. Mm-hmm. Now, that transcends into the position of leadership that you see today. When boys are raised, they are raised to think leadership. If I ask you now, sir, to close your eyes as an experiment, and I ask you to think about who a leader is, what image will come into your mind, sir, and you, sir?
Human being. A human being will pop up.
You're trying to be
not an animal.
You're trying to be technical about it. A human being. What kind of human being, sir?
Well, he may have coiled hair, but it may be a man or woman.
Fair enough. But the usual answer based on research is that everybody thinks he's a man. Because all our mindset, we've been raised to think that he's a man. Nothing absolutely wrong with that. But that's to tell you that the challenge that we're all facing. You talked about breaking down barriers. So how do we now begin to tell girls and even boys that when you reimagine, you can also see a girl in a position of leadership? That is part of the engineering that we now need to re-engineer. We need to now begin to re-engineer in a positive way. So nobody is trying to battle or fight anybody to take anything. It's to say, just like she's correctly said initially, we cannot occupy the space. The sky is big enough for all of us, right? But the engineering that we've already had, the mindset, the imbibing, the culture that how we've raised boys and girls, do not give all of us equal opportunity. And I dare say, sir, that even boys and men are facing pressure. Because the way you've raised the boys to feel like they're the only ones that can provide, now the highest number of suicide rates are boys and men. You raise boys not to talk and speak and all of that issue is happening. It's still the same thing. So imagine if it is that you raise girls and boys differently, give them an equity mindset, challenge their thinking, and we're all here to support each other. How do you think we're all going to be living? So the culture, and I have to speak about religious platforms as well, sir, because that's where I'm a Christian. I'll talk from a Christian background, and I'm an Anglican, and I love my church. However, the transition of education that we're getting from the religious pulpits is still subverting girls and women to a certain degree. But now that it's evolving, I can only speak for my church and Matthew's Anglican Church, that the thinking is evolving, but that's another platform to challenge it. Because when you say a woman is this, that, and a third, you transition her to think like that. And the society applauds the women who actualize and demonstrate such attitudes. And then they begin to police other women to demonstrate such attitudes. Do you see what I mean? It's a long technical conversation, more than 30 minutes to end. But we need to keep talking about it. We need to honestly go back to the root causes and be honest with ourselves. First of all, Do you really want women to be in leadership roles? Are you raising your girl child differently? And are you raising your boy child to know that the girl child can also be a leader differently? And how is that going to translate? Because it can. We all need to do that to help each other.
By the way, the opportunities available to women, how much are they taking advantage of it? I give you basic examples. International Women's Day, you don't have for the men, that's by the way.
We do.
You have Mother's Day, multiple Mother's Day. Now, these are days essentially set aside for women, to promote women, to support women, just pro-women. Would you say that women are taking advantage enough of this? What about mentorship?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely 100%, which is why I said initially that some media organizations, some conversations minimize the impact of women.
How?
Sir, in the sense of you're having a conversation about how women are able to do things, you only speak up to women in this kind of show today. On International Women's Day, you invite a woman to come. When you're having political conversations, you rarely invite women. When you're having conversations about the nation, you rarely invite women.
Here.
But what conversation are we having? We have women.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But this is a show where it should be frequent. Now, it's a great thing. I'm not saying it's not a great thing. What we're talking about here is how we can expand the reach, right? You can agree with me that we need to do more. We're talking about doing more, right?
And that's why I asked if you are doing enough with what you have. You came from a religious background. You know the story about, those who maximize the potential that they have, getting more. And that's what I'm looking at. You could do more with what you have, can't you?
So I would like to change your narrative to say that it's not about doing more with what you have. We are giving little, and we're doing more with the little that we were given. We imagine if we're giving more space to do more, sir. In the religious sect, we are giving positions to do prayer. You pray for this, pray for that, pray for this. And guess what? The men only have one time to pray, or one coalition or collaboration to do things. But again, let's just go back to society. It's not you or I. It's about the way society has raised you and I. It's a social normative thing that this is how it should be. But what we're talking about now is we need to change and challenge the narrative for all of us to see better, more potential. So if I look at your point, sir, about doing enough, we are doing much more with the little that we're given. If it is that you expand the space, for example, don't do meetings at night. For example, while we're here, 35% affirmative action, please implement it, right? Imagine what would happen. That's where I want the conversation to lead to, sir.
Okay, I get you. You're changing the mindset. Okay, let's bring... Oh, you want to add to it?
I just wanted to add one or two lines to what she has said. So apart from the focus being on what we should do, what women should do, women have actually done a lot. But it's actually a matter of sometimes turning rhetorics to action. We've done so much capacity building, capacity strengthening, training, whatever you want to call it, workshops. And the media is usually involved in all these trainings. We have gender advocates that are from the media. We have he for she from the media. They are champions in so many areas regarding women's, regarding the issues of empowerment, gender, and so have you. So, but what I think is an issue here now is that mindset change.
So how do we begin to mobilize, people to have that kind of a change of mindset? How do we mobilize people, the society in general?
They have already been mobilized. It's just a matter of what, you see, imagination, visualization, what you see tells you a lot. So what the media shows, what they say, and how probably the choice of words they use when it comes to women or men matters a lot. So as our partners, and I'm not just talking about it as a women thing, media, they have a role to play in how people perceive these discourses that have to do with gender issues, women empowerment, and so have you.
Are you leveraging on the social media, social platform to further amplify the voices of women? How are you going about that?
We've leveraged several platforms, and the only issue is, please, you are our partners. Don't let us speak alone. Come with us. Do this talking for us, because sometimes you change your strategy. If I have a cause I'm
We can't
protecting,
do the talking for you. You have to talk yourself.
if I have a cause I'm promoting, I don't always have to be the one in your face. Someone else can appeal to a better audience, and that could be the media. They can find a way to strategize, and they change this narrative so that people can understand better what the issues are.
Don't worry, as a he for she, I'll do the talking for you. I'll help you to do the talking. But I get worried when I see that when you talk about women being marginalized, most times we focus on politics. People talk, she's talked about 35% affirmative. And I ask, in business, how are you pursuing that? In access to finance, how are you pursuing it? In access to other opportunities that are not politics, how are you pursuing it to ensure that the woman, becomes more independent? It's not only in politics. And I mean, if you get the financial muscle that you need and go into politics that way, I bet you can muscle your way through.
Yes, a lot of sensitization and awareness are being created regarding politics, economics, and so have you, agriculture. But your questions were directed towards responses that had to do with political responses, you understand? So probably that's why we are speaking like it's all about politics. But in all these other spheres, we are speaking, we are talking, we're mobilizing women, we're raising awareness and, training a lot of women so that they can know how to access opportunities that are for them, bringing messages to the grassroots. And sometimes also, beyond speaking to women alone, the developers of some of these services, we are also speaking with them so that people, regardless of where they are, and sometimes when you now say people and then the marginalized groups, you find a lot of women there. We also try to make them to make their services or their tools or their what have you to be relatable, easy to understand. Because when you come to it, one size does not fit all. So when you use a particular maybe terminology or jargon, a particular language, a particular style and process that has been around for a very long time, those who don't understand it will not be able to access it, and they'll say, this one does not concern me. I'm leaving it to them. It doesn't have anything to do with me. So it's not about producing very new, what will I call it now, approaches to doing things. Not about bringing the same old ways of doing things, but about adapting it to the realities of today, speaking to various people. For instance, Women Trust Fund, Nigerian Women's Trust Fund, and their inclusive governance program, they are also promoting, women's access to all these services that can help them to be empowered. And inclusion now means you are talking to that person who is illiterate, who is literate, who probably has a disability of some sort, or probably where they are, they don't have a they have network issues and so on and so on and so. So all these things have to really, really be considered when you are deploying a program and you want other people who are left behind, and in this case, women, to be able to participate or make use of it.
These days, women are not left behind because we see women being head of banks, CEOs and all that. Now they are so common. Even head of big organizations, we have women there. So I think the narrative actually is changing. Maybe it's not changing enough as fast as what you desire. So are you thinking, or you believe that there should be policies in place, to further, promote the rights of women?
Well, yes, absolutely. That's one of the reasons, just to say yes, I agree to everything that she said. There's room for improvement, right? But the thing is to be deliberate about the improvement that we want to see. There are different facets of life, like you've accurately mentioned, that should be on the table, but everything is being discussed. When you want to mirror the 35% affirmative, right, is to say that it's not just for political participation. It's to say that even in your employment processes, you're employing people to do work. Can you just be deliberate enough to ensure that you also women or young women are applying for the positions as well? Do you see what I mean? That's really what it is. If it is that you're giving loans and investments in different parastatals and agencies who give out loans, can you please ensure that the businesses that are applying to collect these loans have women as well as part of it? So you're very right. Policy is always a great deal. In Nigeria, we're always having so many policies. We just need to be encouraged to intentionally pass them. But imagine if it is that we had really passed the 35% information and we now task parastatals, organizations, media organizations, and we come to you and say, if you're going to interview somebody like the previous interview you had of the Ministry of Agriculture, ensure that you come with a woman, not just a man. Imagine if you just did that little change. So there's an identification that's going to happen here. People will identify themselves in who they see in the man and who they see in the woman as well. And inclusion, as she said, is very, very important. People with disability is actually because they're members of our society. That's the whole inclusion, if it is that we ensure all of this. But policies are papers. Policies are documents that we come together, look at a problem, we evaluate it, and we look for solutions. But we have to be intentional about, applying those policies. So you're very right on that point, sir.
Do you think men are actually, supporting, women empowerment? I mean, and promoting probably gender equality? I mean, from your experience, do you think men are trying?
From my experience, I will speak from a privileged thinking and background because I have a fantastic father, a fantastic man in my life who is my dad, who ensured that my mom, his wife, right, went from secondary school education to a PhD holder. All of us, his daughters, were like flyers, and that's how he educated us. So I can come and say, yes, it's happening everywhere because I have one lens, and that's my dad, right? And it may not be fair to, reciprocate this across because every other person has a different experience. Having said that, I've also associated with a lot of men who are very key in ensuring that women are uplifted. Like, I like the way she talked about that empowerment word being bastardized, but we still have to use it anyway because it's a word that we have to still try to push. But a lot more men are coming around to the idea. But again, let's look at the social norms. That has to change quite a lot. There's some men who do not probably clearly understand what the benefit should be. I don't have a problem in selling the benefit to the man to see, look how where it is going to get all of us. It's not about a tic-tac battle thing. It's an inclusive measure for all of us to see ourselves from point A, like we keep, I think we can all agree we're saying room for improvement from point A to point B. That's what I did. But I think, again, going back to how we're re-educating our children in schools, the institutions, what are we telling our boys? How are we raising the boys now, the young men now? What are they thinking? Because I have the ideology that even if you're raising young women and girls to think differently, and you are not re-educating the boys, they're going to go out there and meet with the same boys who you have not re-educated, right? So it's an inclusive work. So just to summarize and answer, I do believe there are a lot of men, but there might be less than 10% of them. Again, there's room for improvement. And I believe that, once men really understand it and come on board it will take off like a rocket.
All right. Anwale, thank you very much. And I think we have contributions coming in from the viewers. Before I get to Neka again, Chikezie from Warri, Delta State says, women in recent times are increasingly being empowered and have more opportunities to achieve their ambitions. They are now well represented in education and leadership roles, making significant strides in various fields. And from Victor B. from Owerri, my work is focused on gender reconstruction, whereby the social constructs that limit women are communicated and reconstructed through education to be able to be part of decision making. I'm sure Demola has some of his own. No, you don't?
No, I don't have one.
All right.
Yet.
Now, I was going to ask, in line with the first contribution that I raised, you see, I know that I had asked earlier if we are doing enough with what we have, but now some people argue, like the first person, that, look, women are already doing great. Are there metrics for measuring? We do a lot of talking, but we don't follow through. Are there metrics to gauge the progress that are being made, maybe on a year-to-year basis, maybe on a month-to-month basis? There are areas that are exclusively women. There are areas where women are dominant. Nobody speaks about all of those. So is it really as bad as we portray it?
Well, it's an interesting question, which I like the word he used. He talked about there are some gains. Women are, increasingly, do you understand? And I mentioned something like that we're having some wins, which we should celebrate. However, it's referencing where we came from and where we're headed, meaning that there is some improvement. There is a lot of improvement. But in terms of how do we gauge it, that is where the 35% affirmative action, which she has mentioned.
Which is just in politics, by the way, right?
Not necessarily
in governance.
In politics. That is the benchmark of representation expected from women, women's representation. If you go to the Constitution, you will see that it talks about gender equality, right? But then, if we're not even able to achieve 50-50, we are saying, can we even reach 35%? As you are aware, the Nigerian Women Trust Fund led a coalition that sued about the implementation of the 35% affirmative action, and the Federal High Court in Abuja granted an implementation. They granted the court order for the 35% to be implemented across board. However, and that is since April 2022. However, that 35% is still not being implemented. Surprisingly, again, there is even a global benchmark of about 20-22%. Nigeria, as we speak, the giant of Africa, everybody looks up to Nigeria like we are achievers. We've not even been able to achieve 20% or 22% of this affirmative action at the federal level. But in some states are really doing a lot to exceed that, such as Ekiti State and Kaduna State. But now, for the 35% affirmative action, Nigeria has signed so many conventions, internationally, regionally, and what have you. But then, when it's not being implemented. It's not being implemented. So there is a need for us to follow up with this 35% affirmative action using the gender policy. It has already been revised from 2021 now, 2026.
Actually, implementation is actually some major problem.
It's the major problem
in this country. Okay, let me just. Some women want to find out, how you have been able to overcome, your challenges or obstacles in your journey towards empowerment. Probably you can share with, some of our viewers, women that are watching, so that they can learn from your experience. How have you been able to overcome the obstacles in your, journey towards empowerment?
Well, let's say I'm overcoming. I've not overcome because, like they say, new levels, new issues.
New challenges.
Yeah, so thank you for that. But it's a daily climb. I'm not going to sit here and say that it doesn't happen every day, because like I said, the way we're raised, I believe that we're raised to see barriers, challenges, and all of that. And in the environment that we're living, you have to sort of do more. But for me, personally, as Angali, I'm a Christian, so that's, inevitable. However, the confidence that got built in me from my parents, my mom and my dad, and seeing how my dad always supports my mom and all the conversation they have was good. The education and intelligence is something that I'm very, very big on. I'm very big on education, very big on intelligence, very big on, schooling yourself, very big on raising yourself internally, your self-esteem, and really understanding why you're here. Because the main purpose is why you're here. I love the way he pointed that question about just politics. There are different areas of life that all women are called to. And the women who are called, who just want to stay at home and look after their family, it's a beautiful, beautiful leadership experience, because you're raising generations of people as well. That's very, very okay. But look at what you want to do. You take a decision and put in your best into it. Study about it, research about it, ask about it, be the best that you can be in your field, and promote yourself over it. You will get obstacles, even if you read, even if you go to Harvard and come back, you still get obstacles.
Let's take perhaps the last minute that we have to get to Nneka. If you are looking at a Nigerian girl right now, with regards to all that we have said, what would be your advice to that young Nigerian girl this morning?
I will advise her to keep being optimistic, to keep improving on herself, but to do so while, learning about the environment around her, and to be able to understand the environment and then adapt her messages to the audiences that are around her, because these issues about empowerment, these issues about gender parity, it's an issue of buy-in. How am I communicating to the next person for them to understand me? Nigeria is too diverse, too many cultures, too many different religions, you know, ethnicities and so on. So one size doesn't fit all. I won't advise her to think out of the blue and imagine she's in another country. I know so many of the courses we are promoting are foreign courses. But when we localize it and it appeals to the particular area where we are probably selling or advocating our messages and bring it to the local level, I believe a lot of people will listen, understand you, and you can work together to be able to achieve your goals.
Work together is the key word here. Work together to achieve your goals. And the fine place to leave this conversation, Nneka Acholonu Ebuna, Program Coordinator, Let's Help Humanitarian Foundation. It's been a pleasure having you on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you very much.
Let me also thank Angole Aniebo, development professional, gender specialist, and humanitarian advocate. We thank you very much for your perspectives on Good Morning Nigeria. So that's the show. Good Morning Nigeria returns same time next week. I'll be here, and I will see you again then. I'm Victor Azo.
And I'm Ademola Adeye. Do have a wonderful day.